Hello, true believers. This is Bebot Only doing another vlog, and this time I wanted to give my thoughts on this latest development here over Vicente C. And as you can see from this Rappler article, I saw this on one of my feeds that he died yesterday, or we got the news yesterday that he died. Vicente C is the second convict witness versus the Lima to die. Okay, to summarize this, there were three drug lords in the Muntinlupa Bilibid prison. Okay, now Muntinlupa Bilibid prison. Now this is the long-term prison. I never made it to this prison, but if I did get convicted and supposedly in like 2 weeks, I would be, once you've been convicted long-term over 5 years, you are supposed to be normally transferred to the big house, the big Bilibid prison. Now the big Bilibid prison, the Muntinlupa prison, as you go to like the bigger prisons, you get more and more, I don't want to say more choices, more activities. You have more versus if first of all, when you first get arrested, you're in a small, tiny detention cell, which is smaller than most master bedrooms in America, and then it's supposed to only hold 30 people, but when I was there, it held as many as 150 people. So it was like standing room only. Literally, people were like in the bathrooms and like taking turns sleeping. Fortunately, I was already the mayor, so I had my own bunk, so I didn't have to spend it share it with 10 other people. But if that was the case, if I showed up at that time and I wasn't the coordinator, the mayor, or the person in charge, then I would have it would have been pretty miserable. But as you get to, then I got to the medium term prison, which is a little bit bigger, has better facilities. And then if you go to the actual long term facility, they have way better facilities. As you can see, they have private gyms, jacuzzis, tennis courts, swimming pools. And you're wondering, wow, swimming pools, tennis courts, private gyms, restaurants, gourmet meals, all that in the Muntinlupa prison? Yes, absolutely. If you look at the videos, they have these hotels type of setups. And first of all, where does that money came from? Where does that, obviously the government's not going to come from the government. Where does the money come from? And the obvious answer is from the illegal drug trade in the prison. Uh, Anything you want in the big prison, marijuana, shabu, alcohol, cigarettes, anything you want. If you have money, you can basically get it. And from those transactions, that's where the drug lords get the funding to. So for me, for example, for our detention, how we raise money, because there's no money provided by the government in those places, we sold cigarettes. Normally you buy them for like $1 a pack, or 20 cents a pack. We would sell them for $2 a stick. And then from there, you can pretty much build your house. I wasn't really interested in that. So that's how the funding, it's kind of a gray area. At least cigarettes is not considered illegal outside versus marijuana or drugs or other contraband. So it's normal. And how and why and how do they do it? It's because the payola, then they pay off they share the proceeds so they can continue. And the people in charge, the guards, the staff on duty, they look the other way as they take their cut. And if they don't, well, so for this thing to run successfully and to continue ongoing, is that there's a code of silence. When I was in prison, whatever happens in prison stays in prison. And if you want to stay alive, what you have to do is you have to keep your mouth shut. And when you have visitors, any activity that goes on in prison, any fights, any disciplining, anything that it's supposed to, you're supposed to, anything that is any, for example, any hanky panky going on with the police in charge or duty, the police on duty at that time. If there's any hanky panky going on, or I mean, there's no secrets between them and the female inmates. You're supposed to look at the other way. You're supposed to not discuss it. You're not supposed to talk about it. You're not supposed to share it with your family, because if it does, we have a saying here in the Philippines, isang one person, it's everybody in the prison gets punished. Not if somebody does something wrong, everybody, because you're supposed to be responsible for, and especially me, I'm supposed to be the one keeping control. So that's how the system works. You got one person in charge. If you have like a gang, and then the gang leader's in charge of them, and if there's anything goes wrong, you just speak to that gang leader, and the gang leader is the one that's supposed to. In my situation, I was the gang leader of the detention for almost a half a year, and I pretty much kept it quiet. We kept violence down to a minimum. Of course, people. I made people's adjustments as easy as possible when it comes to there, and I get to a point where people didn't want to leave and they didn't want to get transferred. So, uh, but the basic rule was whatever is going on, you don't want to talk about it, because then you get severely punished. I mean, they'll turn off the electricity, they'll turn off the water, they'll. Uh, I think the most severe punishment is removing visits. They'll just say, okay, no visits for a week, and that's probably that's what keeps everybody in line. No visitors for like, but they usually bring it back right away if something goes wrong. When I was in prison, the the coordinator before me, the leader before me, was busted for drugs. I mean, for selling drugs inside the prison, and then everybody also got punished, because everybody, it's supposed, the rule is everybody knows about it. It's like it's not a big secret. And then the fact that they didn't tell the prison guard, or they didn't, so everybody is punished. So back to what I was saying. So back to this situation here, Vicente C. So there was three people that were actually testifying about the drug trade in the prison, and how Laila de Lima, the senator or the secretary of the Department of Justice that was in charge of the prison, was getting a kickback, getting a payola, getting a hush money, and from the drug trade. And these three drug lords inside, and drugs is a huge business. You're never going to get rid of it. Vicente C, I think something Co. There was three of them, and JB Sebastian. So this is JB Sebastian died like when COVID first started. So in prison, what happened was we all got COVID, but nobody died. But in Muntinlupa, like 10 drug lords died, and there was two theories or two thoughts on what happened to those people, to those 10 high-profile drug lords. Some of them said that maybe they were actually, their deaths were faked, and then that they're free, and then they just used somebody else's body. Another school of thought is that they were killed, and that is extrajudicially killed in prison, and then used COVID as a cover-up. And where my thoughts are on that, based on my experience of what goes on in prison, especially in this situation, or Vicente C, he died of some illness, and this isn't the first time. The first time, JB Sebastian, if you look at the other person that died, there were actually two attempts in his life. JB Sebastian was actually stabbed, and they just blamed it on there was a prison riot. So not much from there, and he was actually hospitalized. And then the second, when COVID hit, they said he died from COVID this time. And now so because he testified, the second person. And when you're in prison, it's fine to testify if you're out of prison, but the dumbest thing you will ever do, the stupidest thing you will ever do, the guaranteed way to get you killed, is while you're in prison, you talk. There's a rule in prison: you talk, and if you're still in prison, you die. And that's pretty much it. So if you want to stay alive, you keep your mouth shut while you're in prison. Whatever it is, whatever it is you saw, if you saw a murder, if you saw a drug trade, because what's going to happen is the prison guards or the warden or the officers on duty or the people in charge, they don't like that because it's gonna that kind of activity or that kind of exposure is bad for them. They can lose their job, and there's nothing more dangerous when the warden is scared of losing his job, and they'll kill people, they'll murder people. Killing prisoners inside prison is no big deal here in the Philippines because, especially even in America, that's the easiest thing for them to do. I mean, these people, these police are murderers. I mean, that's how they got their position. That's how they got their job in the first place, as who's willing to murder the most, who's willing to murder the most prisoners. I mean, they'll kill people. They'll kill people in prison left and right, and have a sandwich and think nothing of it. So my school of thought is that the number one is my school of thought is that J.B. Sebastian was extrajudicially killed. They tried it the first time. Of course, what is he gonna say while he's still in prison? Oh, I was targeted, I was ambushed, it was a conspiracy, and he learned that that was kind of like the message that he to keep his mouth shut. And it didn't matter because if you go straight to the top, there's the Lima, there's other people there. If the Lima is part of it, it's a whole network, and it starts falling like dominoes. So once you start talking, once you start snitching, no one's gonna protect you because the same people that you're snitching against are the same people that hold your life. That their life is in your hands. They could just order a killing and then extrajudicial killing, and they could say whatever, and then they could just make up some excuse, and nothing's good. You'll get no justice. You have no rights when you're in prison. So my job was just to like, okay, I understand how the rules work over here. It's just survival. How to survive. Just keep your mouth shut. You do your job. Nobody wants to create any waves, but when these people, when the Vicente C started talking and started talking about the drug trade in there, a lot of people are going to get hit by the warden all the way down to the guard. It's all the way from the top down. Once you start talking, and these are the same people that hold the keys to your life while you're in prison. So in their defense, they were probably caught between a rock and a hard place. Okay, we got uh, they're going to make my life hard. It's like choosing your poison. They're thinking that they're saying, okay, if you testify, we'll give you immunity, but you're still in prison, and or they will lower your we'll give you protection. And there's no way you could be protected in prison when what the people in charge, what the warden, what the police all just say. Once you start talking, and once you start narking out, once you start snitching, once you start talking about the system in there, the same people that you're going to be snitching against, you're going to be your life is in constant danger. You just signed your death sentence right there. So the and why I don't think that this was their deaths were faked in terms of like they were what they did was they paid the warden or the people in charge millions and millions of pesos or millions of dollars, and then they were able to get a new identity. No, that's probably, I would say that's not likely to happen. If you're the warden and you're given a choice, okay, either kill him or lose your job because he's snitching, you're gonna say kill him right away and just blame it on COVID or blame it on a riot. And then what about the money? Oh, we'll get somebody. There's nothing easier than to replace one drug lord with another drug lord. This is also their way of sending a message to keep the people in line. You get out of line, you step out of line, you start snitching, you start talking about the system, you start talking about the drug trade inside the business, the multi-million dollar business over there. You're gonna die, and there's nothing you could do about it while you're in prison. So once these people started talking, this Vicente C, the second witness, once you start becoming state. When it'd be fine if you go into their custody, but you're still in prison, and these people are all connected. They all know each other. It's like dominoes. If one goes down, everybody goes down. So it's easier to just extrajudicially kill you. So, and also, if, for example, let's think about the other scenario, like, oh, they just, because the guy has lots of drug money, he just paid the people, the hospital, whatever, to fake the doctor's death so he can go free and just resume an identity or get plastic surgery. I mean, yes, that sounds possible, but it's far fetched because what is the first thing you're gonna do when you get out? You're gonna contact your family. You're gonna contact your friends. You're gonna enjoy your freedom, like I did. You're gonna enjoy restaurants. You're gonna make a big, huge scene, and to enjoy your freedom. And I already said there's no secrets here in the Philippines. There's no privacy here in the Philippines. The prison warden can't afford that. Can't risk that. Imagine that. That if that happens, so he's gonna say, "Oh, I mean, I'm sure they thought about it. Hey, why? Can you imagine going to the prison warden, and he said this is probably what happened. Hey, uh, Warden, I'll give you like $10 million if you just fake my death, say it was COVID in the birth certificate, and then let me go, and I'll assume another identity and disappear, and this will never come back to you." And the prison warden says, "Yeah, as if I'm going to trust you. I'm you trust me. I'll trust you as far as you can trust me that this will never come back to me." And the only way to do that is, so the prison warden said, "Yeah, yeah, let's do that. You give me the money, I'll fake your death and let you go. You trust me that I'll let you go if you pay me? Sure, let's do that." What happens is they probably give him the money and just killed him anyway. You can't trust these. There's no honor among these prison guards. There's no honor among these politicians. You can't trust them. It's all about money. Once greed sets in, uh, lives are so cheap. Even my life, what these people are willing to do with my life and to my family, all for just credit cards, or just to you and me, it's just minor. To them, it's like money. Money is money, no matter what. They'll sell their own daughters. They'll pimp out. The police will pimp out anyone, especially your daughter. No matter what age she is, she could be a child. She'll be used by the police. And like I said, I'll have the documents over here to talk about that. But the point I'm saying is, when it comes to money now, and that's just the culture here in the Philippines. It gets worse and worse, and I'm probably if there's going to be a trend of more people leaving the Philippines because it's just the money, and the danger of money, and if you have money, it's just getting worse and worse, and it's just not a good place to live. I probably That's something that I always struggle with on a daily basis. But we've been living here so long, and so far we've decided to just kind of fight it and deal with it for now, until it becomes a situation where we can no longer live here anymore. I struggle with the decision every day. I'm one day I'm thinking, okay, everything's fine here. The next day it's like life and death. But that's what life and death is. And if you can't deal with it, you just have to. The important thing is, you have to know that this is the reality here. So the reality here in prison is most likely that this person was extrajudicially killed, as you can see from this Rappler article. The way they titled it is the second convict. There's three witnesses. The first one already died. The second one here died of unusual circumstances. One was COVID, and the other one was. And this one is like, I don't even know. Uh, Maybe we should go into the article. So he testified in court 20, so he never met and never gave money to Lima, according to the senator's lawyer. Yeah, what's this? Maybe next time. So convicted drug lord against jailed has died at the department. So C was among the Lima witnesses detained as at the Marine barracks in Fort Romeo, said ordered for their safety. C is their second witness against the Lima during the pandemic, the first being JB, who died July last year due to the coronavirus. According to C, was brought to the Naval Hospital. He had difficult breathing. He was given emergency. So he couldn't. He had difficulty breathing. So he was brought to a military base for his safety, but he's still in prison. is the problem. Don't talk while you're still in prison. You when you're out of prison, you can talk as much as you want because your options. But once you're in prison, you don't have any options. So he died of not being able to breathe. So what's the take home message over here? Take home message is here if you ever find yourself in prison, the important thing is just number one, survive, and number two, just go about your daily just to try to be as comfortable as possible. When I was there, I pretty much minded my own business. I paid my dues, whatever expenses that needed to come up. I usually worked my made my negotiations with them to get some privileges like I want a lamp and books and my own bunk and bathroom privileges, simple things like that. I mean, you would think that those things you would take them for granted, but those are privileges that are hard to come by while you're in prison. So that way I have something to keep me from going insane while I was in there. So uh, so based on what I know, like I said, if you then the next thing is keep your mouth shut. If you have visitors, if you have family, the first they always tell you what happens in prison stays in prison. I've got a lot of prison stories. It's just hard for me to reminisce about them. It's not something that I'm usually kind of busy moving on, living my life, enjoying my life at the same time. But we have to keep in mind for the people that are interested here in the Philippines, or I mean, most of the people that are watching this have their own interest or reasons why they watch videos about the Philippines and people living here in the Philippines. And these are the things that are going on. You might find yourself in prison or you might find yourself dead. And the number one reason why is because of money. Because the people over here, you are the pearl, just like in that Steinbeck story. And people will just, and lives are over here are so cheap. So uh, keep that in mind when you're talking about on when you're and of course people, that's all people want to talk about is how wonderful. I mean, I know how wonderful the Philippines is, but also there's plenty of people already blowing smoke up your butt about those kind of things. But what I want to do is show you what the flip side is. I want to make sure that you're informed as much as possible how the prison system works over here. And if you want to stay alive, keep your mouth shut. And if these people, they were still in prison for their safety, there is no safety. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to trust, who are you going to trust? They say, okay, you testify and we'll keep you safe. Yeah. Hide. So you're maybe they put him in a proposition as if you don't testify, we'll kill you. If you testify, well, there's even a chance that you might will transfer you out. But even then, there's you're just gambling right there with your life. But the decision probably was already made once they participated in the drug business over there. If you're going to be in there, and there's of course there's advantages and disadvantages for being a drug lord over there. You take on a lot of expenses, you get a lot of privileges, but you take on a lot of responsibility also, and ultimately you will pay with your life is the ultimate exchange. So I don't know, for them, is it better, is it better to live in prison where you have where you're the king as a drug dealer, or die right away? I don't know. I didn't get to that point yet. I prefer to just beat this. It's like I prefer my freedom and my innocence, and and keep enjoying my life. But like I said, one of the reasons how I survived prison was because there's a code in there that you're supposed to keep your mouth shut and don't say anything that will put the livelihood of the people that hold your lives, the prison guards, the warden, the people in charge, the staff, you don't talk about the illegal activities that goes on in there, especially while you're still in prison, if you want to stay alive. Anyway, that's my thoughts about it. I, because of my extensive experience in the prison and how I survived it after 2.5 years, I wish that I could, and not that I wish. I'm sorry I don't have any information regarding the bigger place, but from what I understand, or from what I the documentary I've seen, the drug business over there is alive and well, and the drugs are still flowing, because of money. As long as people are getting paid off, the drugs will continue. Anyway, let me know what you think. How do you think these people died? How do you think JB Sebastian? Were you one of those people that thought that JB Sebastian, or these high profile drug lords that made themselves rich inside the prison? And this is a universal fact when it comes to the prisons, is that the prisoners are the ones in charge. The gang leaders are the ones in charge of the prisons. Okay, and the gang leaders, the ones who are in charge of them, are the wardens and the police. And if you and there's some rules and there's some code, is you don't testify. And if once you become state witness, that's your death sentence right there, and there's nothing you can do. Even if they make an attempt at your life and you survive, you're never going to survive the next one. So if you ever find yourself in this kind of situation, then keep in mind, I remember the code. One of the best ways to is to endanger the livelihood of the key masters, the prison guards, the warden. Just not, make sure you stay on their good side, and that is to maintain the business of, continue their business. When I was, for me personally, when I was in prison, like I said, most of the businesses were legitimate. There was, of course, there was loan sharking going on, not a lot of gambling going on. They don't allow it, but there were other businesses like the food business, the jewelry business. Even though what they do is they rent out the spaces, and they take so if you're selling that are non-illegal things, like a commissary, then that's fine. They even have a store in there where they sell things, like if it's $1 outside, it's like $5, $10, $20. There's always that extra heavy tax. It's the handling fee, of bringing it to you in prison. So you can buy like soda, but you have to, because they're marked up like 500%. And usually I just kind of live without it. And you are allowed to bring food, certain food, but what happened during COVID was the prison staff got more desperate for more money. So what they did was they just during COVID times, they needed more money. So what they did was, nothing was supposed to go inside. Everything, all food, anything has to be bought through the store now, through the prison store. So to increase the revenue. Before, people could bring you food, and I would go to a point where I don't need to buy anything from the prison store. But when COVID locked down and there was nobody bringing you food, no visits for, I think, up until now, then you have to buy everything through the store, and that's how they compensated for the COVID's, their need for more money was to force the people. And I had to spend, you could be sent money through remittance in prison. So I was spending like $100 a month on food, and it was just like your basics, like eggs and canned sardines. So I don't mind eggs. I like eggs, but the sardines part I could probably, and a lot of instant noodles is what we lived off of, or what I lived off of, whatever was available over there. But anyway, let me know what your thoughts are on what you think. What do you think happened? How did he die? Is the third person that testified, is he gonna die also? Probably, if there's already two people that died, and JB Sebastian was the first one to die because of COVID, and not because I don't think he died because of COVID. My opinion is he died, and that's just my own personal opinion. He died because he testified. And that's just, like I said, a guaranteed death sentence once you testify against the people that are holding your life in prison. Anyway, this is Babbitt's Only. Let me know what you think. This is the reality. This is life and death are a common occurrence over here. Once you know the rules, there's just like me, maybe just maybe you could stay alive and survive. This is Babbitt's Only. Thanks for watching.